freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. You and I have a rendezvous with destiny.
You know what time it is, so sit back and get ready for the Stafford Voice, your dose of conservative in a world of liberal.
3, 2, 1.
Hey, hello America. This is a special presentation of Antifa. So sit back, buckle up, and hang on because we're just getting started. And you guys are familiar with who I am. I'm Daniel, and I've got my co-host here with me. Who is that?
Roxanne.
That's right. You're watching or listening to the Stafford Voice, where we are conservative in a world of liberal. And I apologize for getting started a little late. We had a little bit of technical difficulty as we were trying to get things going. We've got everything fixed. So I want to remind you that if you're watching the rebroadcast of this, I want to thank you so much. If you're listening to the rebroadcast, thank you again. But feel free to leave a comment or anything. We want to hear from you, whether you're listening live or you're listening to a replay. And I want to remind you there are so many different ways to stay tuned in. And whatever you're doing, just set the channel as a favorite so you don't get left behind. If for some strange, crazy reason you do miss the show, you will be able to catch the replay. So just sit tight. There's no need to panic because, hey, we got you. And just the easiest way to stay up to date and caught up with everything is to subscribe. In the case you haven't already done so, you can follow us on social media at on the Twitters or Gab at Stafford Voice. Again, that's at Stafford Voice on Twitter or Gab. On Facebook or Instagram or whatever your other social site of choosing is, you can. That's right, just search for the Stafford Voice, and we will probably be there. Okay. Again, this is not a normal broadcast time for us. This is a special presentation. We have a guest today with us. He really doesn't need an introduction at all. Many of you guys know and love him just as much as we do. He is a longtime listener and a very, very good friend of the show. I would personally consider him more of an older brother than anything. So, without further ado, we are going to go ahead and bring on our guest for today, none other than Slick. Slick, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I'm pretty good. You know, for a Friday on a ultra long week, it's just late nights and everything else that's been going on in the world, we're doing pretty good. How's everything down where you're at?
Oh, it's a nice fall day.
Nice fall day. You say it.
Out there now.
You say it's fall. I mean, do you you got nice sunny 70-degree weather, or are you like us up here in Kansas with 30-degree weather?
Yeah, we're running in the 70s right now.
Oh my gosh.
Of course, in Texas we have varying stages of extreme heat. So this is hot. This is rough. We have about 2 weeks of winter where we get cold weather. This is about as cold as it gets the rest of the time.
Well, I'm somewhat jealous, but when we had a winter in Texas, I was stationed down in Texas, and one of the years it was actually one of the worst winters that they had. There was actually snow on the ground. There was ice on the roads. We actually slid off the road. So snow and ice does happen down in Texas. So but I'm glad that you guys aren't covered in snow.
No, I am too. I don't. Texas people can't drive, so I'm real glad it's not covered in snow.
Okay. Well, I mean, we've talked about doing this show for a couple of weeks now. And the topic is Antifa. So I'm just going to kind of hand it over to you. I guess let me ask this: where does the start of Antifa kind of lay? Where does it kind of start?
Well, it's kind of it's hard because the first groups that called themselves Antifa started in the 1930s, around World War II. And they were made up of smaller groups of people from, just like Antifa today says that they're made up of, workers and stuff like that. And their stated goal then was to stand in the gap and stop fascism. And back then we had, in the world, we had true fascism. But what we have today, the group that is calling themselves Antifa today, is not Antifa. It's not ideologically related to that earlier group from the 30s. What we have today is more closely related to the socialist communist revolutionaries, groups like the Bolsheviks and the Nazi Party and the Iranian revolution, the Islamic Revolution in Iran. The groups that make up Antifa today in the United States, and also there's Antifa in Europe, much different than the groups from the 30s. The groups that we have in Europe and here in the United States are closely related to each other, and they are socialist communist groups.
Okay, so I can't help but wonder. I mean, because I'm just like the next guy. What you see with your own eyes is the best tool, and what I see with Antifa today, with what I see here in the States, in the U.S., what I see is a militant group. I see a domestic terrorist organization, right? At best, or at least that is. So I'm interested. Why all of a sudden have they popped up in the last, say, year and a half? Because I mean, most people are going to say that Antifa's only been around for 6 months, 6 to 8 months, and that's not the case. I think Antifa's been around a little longer than that.
Okay, let's look at the ideology of Antifa. Socialist communist revolutionaries. All right, what other groups in American history were socialist communist revolutionaries? And when were they? When did they happen? We've had socialist communist revolutionaries in the United States for at least 100 years. But if we go back in our lifetime, or in my lifetime, back to the 60s, we had groups, these socialist communist revolutionaries, in the 60s. We had groups that were doing armed sit-ins at colleges. And it is important to note that former Attorney General Eric Holder was arrested at one of these armed sit-ins in the 60s. Okay, we had groups like the Weather Underground. We had groups like the group that Patty Hearst was involved with. So we've had communists. We've allowed, under the auspices of free speech, this ideology to grow for at least the last 40 years, maybe the last 50 or 60 years.
Why all of a sudden have they turned so militant? And I'm saying that only because, we've seen by other individuals who have infiltrated Antifa, like Steven Crowder and his producer. Right. We've seen them infiltrate Antifa, and we know that they are an armed group, yet they pride themselves on being non-militant. They are a peaceful group. I mean, go ahead.
Well, okay, let's look at where this specific group that we have today came from, specifically. If you remember back a few years, we had the Occupy Wall Street movement. And an outshoot of Occupy was a group called the Black Bloc. The Black Bloc was the militant arm of the Occupy group. They're the ones that were running around dressed in black, busting people's kneecaps and attacking people and stuff like that. And that group evolved and was kind of absorbed into what we have today as being Antifa. Now, Antifa comes from the colleges, which it's important to note when we're comparing this to history, the Bolshevik Revolution, the German Nazi Party growth, and the Iranian Revolution, along with everything that's going on in the Middle East today, all started in the colleges. So, why have they turned militant all of a sudden? It hasn't been all of a sudden. It's been over a few years. And the thing about it is, they have a new name now, and people associate the militant faction with the name rather than with the ideology.
Okay. So, I mean,
does that make sense?
It does. So here's another question. What are they hoping to get out of all of this?
Oh, that's simple. Their stated goal and purpose right now is to overthrow the United States government and replace it with a socialist government.
Okay. So what do we have to do?
Well, there's an easy way and a hard way. The easy way would be to execute them all for sedition. But
that sounds pretty harsh, though.
No, yeah. Well, the alternative is to let them take over, and we have a communist country.
That's true.
So if you want to save yourself a whole bunch of trouble later down the road, get rid of them now. But our society doesn't work that way. Basically, this is gonna, in my opinion, now see, everything we're talking about right now is moving forward. I'm sorry, I'm fighting a cold here.
No, you're fine. I think everybody is.
Yeah. So everything we're talking about now is moving forward. So we're kind of extrapolating out from what we already know. Here's what we already know about them. And they've become extremely violent just in the past few months. But there's a reason for that. Up until the past few months, they had no funding. And the leadership of the groups, it's not one cohesive group. It's several groups scattered all over the country that identify with each other. Okay, but the leadership of the groups knew that to win a revolution, you've got to have funding, and they didn't have it. Now I believe they do.
Where are they getting their funding?
So, that's where things get sketchy. You start looking at intelligence and stuff like that. We know that throughout history, revolutions, especially in the last 100 years, have been funded by a specific group of people. George Soros and his organization, the Rothschilds and their organization. Without getting into too much conspiracy theory things, I'm thinking that they're funneling money into these groups, and they kind of have to, because the United States is harder to take down than they anticipated, and they're on a clock now for their new world order, one world government agenda.
Okay, now that begs another question. You mentioned the name George Soros, and we know in the last, 3 weeks, he has pulled a rather large chunk of his money from various places, and he's basically
like
just
16 million or something.
He's basically just sitting on it. I'm wondering if, like what you said, that he's paying a lot of this stuff to happen. We know that we even know that if we want to go back a couple of years, that Soros was one of those main groups that was paying and moving people to the polls. So we know that he has an active interest in the political direction of the country.
And
and
also his agenda always is the same everywhere he goes: to destabilize the government, collapse the economy, and make a shit ton of money on it.
And he's pretty good at it.
He's done it in every country. He's real good at it. He knows what buttons to push, because he's been doing this for a long time. He's been destabilizing governments and collapsing economies for 70 years.
So is that why it seems that maybe that Antifa is ramping up their efforts and trying to do more of an active approach and being out in the open?
Yes. Before they got funding, they knew they couldn't win. Now I think they're starting to believe they can. So now let me throw another curveball at you. Something that most people don't even consider, but if you're looking at the condition of society as a whole in the United States, you also have to account for CARE, organizations that have to do with Islam. You also have to account for Black Lives Matter and organizations that have to do with the African American community. You also have to account for organizations like La Raza and Mecha that have to do with the Hispanic community. All of those groups are going to come together. And I think this past weekend, when nothing happened, it was a big sucker punch.
To Antifa?
They won. To us. They won. They had everybody in the country, or everybody who knew what was going on in the country, flipped the hell out.
I'm tracking.
Myself included.
Right. And that was one of the things I wanted to ask was, okay, so, they promoted November 4th for quite a while. Yeah. For I don't know how long, but I know that they had at least been doing it for a couple of months. But and it needed funding to do that. But it's, from the outside looking in, it looked like it was a big bust. Like this was, because it seemed like everybody stayed home. The only people that were out there were these Antifa groups who were in various different cities. You had them pop up in Chicago, with the places that you expect them to. Chicago,
I think what you saw this weekend was the new guys.
Kind of like an initiation, then?
No, like the new guys who aren't actually part of the running part of Antifa, outliers, and stuff like that. That people that what do you call it? Identified with Antifa and showed up for this one, but had never been with Antifa and had never participated before. I think it's probably what you had with that. Because I know we had like 10 times the number of people show up to counter protests in Austin as there were people showing up to protest. So I think now think of this. I'm going to say one thing for you. The Art of War what kind of tactical advantage would it be for me to make my enemy spend all of his ammunition? How many people in the real world, away from Antifa, people like me and you, went to the firing range and put 200 or 300 rounds downrange?
Speaking for myself, I didn't. You know, I'm confident. Yeah. I'm confident in my abilities. You know, I've been trained. I put in the time. I put in the practice. It's second nature now. But you do as a whole. I would say that the firing ranges leading up to now were probably and they were probably busy. You know, you had a lot of people that are starting to see patterns of things that are making them more and more uncomfortable, and they want to be trained, so they do go out. So well, you're really bringing a couple of things to light on this. Wow. I didn't even think of that.
I mean, it's tactics. They know what they're doing. They're not stupid. And we've all got them pegged as being stupid, dumbass little kids from college. That may have been the truth in the beginning, but it ain't now. They're running tactics. I can see underlying tactics. They're running, in my opinion, what amounts to a counterinsurgency program against us.
Yeah.
You remember the counterinsurgency program? Dollar bills and handful of candy to the little kids, and fix things, take care of things for the people in the town, and then get them to turn in the bad guys.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
What are they doing?
They're doing that exact thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's that number one question that we try and answer on the show. What does all of this mean for us? What should we be doing? Do we need to be like those ultra prepper types, and do we need to start going in and stocking up on things? Do we need to, what do we need to do as collectively as a community per se? What do we need to do, and how does all of this affect us? We totally understand that their goal and mission is to overthrow the government, and they want to bring in this new world order. And I think that they would be sorely disappointed once that happened. I think that they would feel had. But what does all this mean for?
We're still in the time of the useful idiot.
True.
For us, it means we continue to be vigilant. If they come to your town, pay attention. Maybe cinch it up a little tighter that day. As far as prepping, the hardcore prepping thing, I think if you haven't started, you should start, but you're probably too late. But that doesn't, every can of food that you put in your pantry for when the crap hits the fan, is a can of food that you get to eat when the crap hits the fan. So it's never too late to start, but if you wanted to prepare for war, they're probably too late. Keep your skills built up. Keep your head on a swivel.
And the other thing that goes along with that, and it kind of seems like we're taking a different direction, but we're really not, is with the idea of prepping, the last thing you want to do is draw attention to yourself. You don't want to be viewed as leaving the house, carrying your firearms, going to the firing range. You need to be discreet as you can. It's that gray man concept.
The gray man concept is ultra important.
You don't want to be seen at the grocery store buying cases upon cases of flour and sugar and oatmeal and stuff like that, and be seen walking into your house, because and this is a question that's come up in the chat room, and that is let's see, I'm bouncing off of two different ones. Jessica says, I don't know if the information is out there or if I missed it, but have they stated where they are focusing on, like location? And then the other point is, I wonder if they have groups around the states in different areas and cities. And they do. There's a group of them in Kansas City. There's a group in almost every liberal college town. And case in point, what they're saying in the chat room again is, you never know who's watching. You don't know if it's your neighbor.
Right.
That's the thing.
Right. We're there. Where you can't trust your neighbor.
Yeah.
We're there. Okay. Yes, and as far as not being seen carrying loads of bulk stuff in, what Tina and I do, I'll tell you what we do. We buy, like this past week was canned potatoes. We bought 10 extra cans of canned potatoes and brought them in normally with our normal groceries and the cans, mixed in with the canned food stuff. You know, we don't buy enough extra to draw attention, but we do buy extra. I've got so much damn salt to it, it ain't even funny.
Now, and here's another thing. I know it seems like we've diverted from the topic of Antifa, but it blends in with the whole thing, and that's being prepared and knowing what to do and how to counteract. Another thing that I think a lot of people the thing that people will also forget is you want to be able to blend in, and that means dressing like them, acting like them at times. That goes along with that gray man concept, where when you go out to town, you go downtown to an area that you know could be a hotbed, or where there could be activity. You just never know. But to make sure that your attire doesn't make you stand out and draw a crowd, you don't want to be seen as, obviously you're doing a conceal and carry type thing, but you don't want to be drawing attention to yourself. If it's making sure that you carry a black sweatshirt with you in your car at all times or in your go bag, that's one of the things that you want to take into it.
I would recommend black, and at night dark gray, for a whole bunch of different reasons. But the thing is to avoid them. Don't put yourself in that situation. That's what the gray man concept is all about, is avoiding trouble. Well, these groups are trouble. So you avoid them groups at all costs. If it means you go buy groceries the next day, then, that's what you have to do. If you do get sucked into a deal where post-collapse, if they win, then, and you need intelligence, then that's where, dressing like them and acting like them would come in. But until then, you need to keep everything as normal as possible. Okay? You don't want to, normal is normal. They're not normal. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So whatever environment you're going into is what you need to be trying to blend into. And it's like the old snipers that showed me how to do stuff. They told me, I don't want to look like a tree. I want to look like nothing.
Right.
Does that make sense? So that's the whole concept right there, as far as appearance goes.
Okay, so...
And if nothing means polo shirts and blue jeans, because that's what everyone else in the town wears, then
that's what you're wearing. Yeah. Okay, so let's get back to Antifa. The idea that we have these militant groups. I mean, why do you think we got here to begin with?
Apathy. We weren't paying attention. A lot of it had to do with the conspiracy theory culture. You know, normal people frown on conspiracy theories, and conspiracy theorists tend to be not normal, and so you got kind of a you know, us normal people are laughing at those conspiracy theory guys. Well, a lot of the conspiracy theories turn out to be right. You know?
Yeah.
So I think that's how we got here. I think we weren't paying attention. I think everybody was busy trying to have a car that was good enough for the neighborhood.
That's true.
A lot of people, instead of buying ammunition, bought leaf blowers. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Life goes on. Life's been good.
I'm trying to pull up a quote here, and go ahead, because as I'm trying to find this, I think it really kind of fits. I gotta find it real quick.
Okay. So yeah, I mean that's how we got here. We got here by a sense of superiority, and not in a bad way, but that's just how it was. That we were better than the communists and the socialists, and ideologically we are. But as far as organization and training and skills, we're not. We are way behind the curve.
Okay, I've found the quote, and it's from John Adams. It's in a letter that he wrote to his wife on May 12th in 1780. And I had kind of joked about this with another guy earlier in the week that that we can blame John Adams for why, and I'm going to use the term in a real broad sense, but why millennials are the way they are. So I'm blaming John Adams here with this. He wrote to his wife saying, the science of government, it is my duty to study more than all other sciences. The art of legislation and administration and negotiation ought to take place. Indeed, to exclude in a manner all other arts. I must study politics and war that my sons may have the liberty to study mathematics and philosophy. My sons ought to study mathematics and philosophy, geography, natural history, naval architecture, navigation, commerce, and agriculture, in order to give their children a right to study painting, poetry, music, architecture, statuary, tapestry, and porcelain. I think that, really, it's really interesting that we as parents, in large part, we really want better for our children, and we want better for our grandchildren, so they don't have to suffer through the same things we did. And I think that I can't help but think that the entitlement idea that some of these Antifa people have is because of that they have been given everything, and when they have to go out and do something for themselves, they're not going to do it. That they fully expect somebody else to do it, and now that they're being basically forced to do it, I think they're getting really pissed off, and they're not happy. And we're seeing, I can't help but think that some of what we're seeing is a result of that idea that, they have to work for what they want. And that's why they want the government to come in.
Yeah, we followed what Adams' prescription for a healthy society was. It turns out it wasn't so healthy. See, I've always operated, there's another quote, I don't know, I think Thomas Jefferson said it, I'm not sure. If there has to be war, let it happen in my time so that my children and grandchildren can live in peace.
Yep.
That's the way I always ran my life. And when my son and my daughter got old enough to start building their own families, I had already tried to pass that on to them. And I think that's probably a much healthier way to look at things.
Yeah.
If we're going to have a bad time, let me deal with it so my kids don't have to.
Yep.
But
okay.
To be honest with you, I'm getting too damn old to deal with it.
Yeah, I feel like that myself. You know, what are we going to do? Are we going to actually, do this, or are we just going to sit around and talk about it?
I think it's like high school.
Yeah, but again, you play off of a lot of people's fear, and you see, and I think that's maybe what they're doing is they're playing off a lot of people's fear that the majority of society does not want the government overthrown. They don't want the UN or some New World Order government to come in and take over. They don't want martial law instituted. The last thing that a lot of people want is to go to church and hear how and hear from their pastor that we're in the end times. People don't want to hear that. They don't want to sit and listen to sermons from the book of Revelation on wars and rumors of wars and how we need to pick sides based off of the battles over in the Middle East. But yet, here we are, we're talking about the impending battle in the Middle East where Islam is waging war with itself because it refuses to go through its own Reformation period. And now we're going to be drawn into that idea that, okay, which side is the United States going to fall on? We've got our own problems because we're so busy paying attention over there that now, we've got these militant domestic terrorist organizations like Antifa popping up and infiltrating the ranks of politics. And next thing you know, boom, we're in a downward spiral. It's just crazy.
I think the key word that you used there was fear. And as soon as you said it, it popped into my head. Didn't Christ tell us, "I did not put the spirit of fear in you"?
He sure did. He tells us how many times in Scripture to not to fear. That the fear is a tool from Satan. Tool is it's not from the Spirit. The Holy Spirit does not bring fear to you. It brings comfort. He is the great comforter.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly. So my thing with the Bible, I try to look at everything from a historical perspective, and less so with the Bible. And I try to look at concepts and solutions and the right way to do things. I don't know how it happened, Daniel, but somewhere along the way, the Christian church convinced itself that Christ was a pacifist. And nothing could be further from the truth.
Right.
All throughout the Bible, God prepares his people for war. I've been following along that line for most of my life.
Yeah, it was more of a defensive tactic than anything. I mean, how many times did the Jews in Old Testament have to? They were cornered and forced into protecting themselves, and who had their back? I mean, the big guy upstairs had their back every time, and he still does. And it's a crazy time that we do.
Today,
yeah.
Even today, he has their back. Even today, the missiles coming from just a few miles away aren't hitting their target.
Yeah.
Even today, he has their back. No one wants to acknowledge that. But even today, he has their back. And even today, he has our back.
So long as we, so long as we continue to, praise him and ask him for help.
Exactly. As long as we keep him in the correct place within our society and within our at least our family, absolutely, I believe that it should be telling me the truth, that he's going to be there for me.
Yeah. You know, I can't. I can only say, speaking from experience, how many times he's been on my side. That when I did ask for help or forgiveness or whatever it was, he was always there. And I asked.
We could sit down and talk about this for hours and hours, and I could tell you each and every time where I should be dead.
Yeah.
And because he had my back, I wasn't.
Yeah, he's got big things in plan for all of us.
Yeah. But so no spirit of fear, but we should prepare for war. That's what we need to do. We need to prepare for war. And one other thing to remember about this. First, our first line of defense is the police. We need to stay out of their way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and
let them do their job.
Right.
And if they get overrun, we need to have their back. Yeah. And then when the military shows up, again, we need to have the humbleness to realize that it's not our place anymore and to get out of the military's way. And if the military gets overrun, then we jump in and get their back. Our position is to get their back. That's what we're there for.
Yep, so true.
A lot of guys talk about, we'll hunt them down and this and that. No, you won't. No, you won't. You're going to get up in the morning. You're going to start your truck 15 minutes before you walk out the door so it'll be nice and toasty warm. You're going to go back in the house and have 2 cups of coffee and a bowl of oatmeal. Then you're going to go to work and work for 8, 10, 12 hours, however many you work. You're going to get in your truck and you're going to come home. And then you're going to watch reruns on Netflix. That's life today in the United States. And that's what people are going to do.
Yep.
And until it's on their street.
I think the best thing that we can do is, be prepared. And that means, that doesn't mean going out and starting conversations with them, because the last thing they're going to do is listen. They're already set in what they believe.
Yeah, the conversation time is over. It's already been had, and they've refused to see our side, and we've, for the most part, refused to see their side, which is not a bad thing. I mean, because once you look at their side, it's whole catastrophe. But, there's no common ground here to make.
Nope, there isn't. Period. We used to have that idea that, 2 years ago, one of the things we talked about on the show was hearts and minds, and that time is way past. That time was...
Well, and more importantly, there is no way possible that people like me and you are going to win hearts and minds.
Right.
Because there's one thing you got to have to win hearts and minds, and that's media.
And we know what side the media is on. Very.
You got to have. Yeah. The other thing you got to have is the government.
And there's, in large part, in large part, we've failed as citizenry to make sure that the government is doing what they're supposed to do, and that is to be an extension of us. They've become their own entity, and they do whatever they want for whatever they think is best, whether it's with our own voice and regard or not. And the media plays into it, because for such a long time Antifa propped up November 4th, and what happens? The media promotes it. The media talks about it. Mm-hmm. They give them free publicity, and then they go out and they show up at these rallies and they video it, and they put it up. They plaster it all over the place. And it just ignore them. Go about your life.
Well,
there's so many other stories that need to be covered than worrying about the 15 people in Chicago that are marching in lock and step with the ideology of Antifa.
Right. I think what we're going to see in the near future is groups, all of the opposition groups, getting together, which scares me because La Raza, CARE, ISNA, Black Panther Party, Black Lives Matter, those are all funded.
By some of the same by some of the same organizations that are funding Antifa.
By exactly the same organizations. Nothing scares me more than the idea of a pallet of M4s coming up and disappearing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
The gun runners are here. They're here. Also, one other thing people need to keep in mind is watch the intelligence community closely in this, particularly the CIA, because the CIA is very, very good at helping collapse economies and collapse governments. They've been doing it for 50 years.
So with regard to that, let me ask a question, because we want to learn, and that's the whole goal. You know that as a listener. Right. We've talked about this so many times. Educate us without giving too much information. Give us a couple of things that we can do and watch for with regard to the CIA and the intelligence community.
Okay, so what it's going to look like to us is this dossier that is in the news right now. Okay, that was a failed operation because it got too crazy. Does that make sense?
Yes, and we've talked about that. You're speaking with respect to Vegas.
No.
No. Okay.
I'm talking about the opposition research documentation that came out of Russia.
Oh, okay. I'm tracking now. Yeah.
About Trump.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what it's going to look like to us. Now, when things get hot, okay, the fingerprint of the CIA is going to be like what happened in Las Vegas. What happened in Las Vegas was a highly trained team, and there's just so much to cover on there. We'd have to do another show on that. But let's just put it this way: the new Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia was at that fucking hotel that night. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say about that. That's what the fingerprints are going to look like when it goes hot.
Okay.
And everybody's going to have to just keep their head on the swivel. You can see that. Well, what they're counting on us to do is keep our head down and not see what's going on around us. Best thing we do is keep our head up, pay attention.
Okay. Well, I think you've opened up, Pandora's box, and we definitely need to talk about this stuff again. And we need to be a little more educated on a lot of these things. So if you're willing to, then we will definitely have you back. And I know that it's going to require some just candid and frank talking that people are just kind of going to want to dismiss, but this stuff needs to be talked about. People need to be educated on this stuff, that when they turn on the mainstream media, that they're able to understand and know for themselves what's happening. So if you're willing to come back on at a future time so we can dig a little deeper into some of this stuff, I would be all for it.
That would be awesome. I'd be happy to do that. Yeah, we would be. And what we'll try to do is stick with the facts as we know and kind of ignore the extrapolation that the conspiracy theories tend to get into, and just say, okay, here's what happened that we know, the facts of the matter that we know. That way we can steer clear of that whole conspiracy theory thing.
Right. And I think that we need to, those that have listened to this show or been watching, I don't want you to be scared. I don't want you to lose sleep at night. I just want you to know that this stuff is happening, and I want you to be educated. I want you to be informed. This is the kind of stuff that the media should be talking about.
Yeah.
I mean,
everybody knows that the CIA is there, and everybody the general consensus is that the CIA is a bunch of spooky dudes in white vans, and if you mess with them, they'll make you disappear, right? That's not true. The CIA is a bunch of dudes just like me and you. They may or may not be more skilled than me or you, but they count on you being asleep.
Right. And
they can only operate if you're asleep.
Exactly. That you took the words right out of my mouth. And that's the thing. You have to stay alert. In the Army, we used to have a saying, and I say it all the time: "Stay alert, stay alive." And I think that's what we got to do. We've got to be a little more alert to the things that are happening around us. If there's a strange-looking vehicle in your area, and it just seems out of place, and you've noticed this over the course of a couple of days, do something about it.
Yeah.
Don't just let it happen.
Yeah. Best thing to do there is call the police.
Yeah.
Let's police you.
And if nothing comes, if
you're a normal guy who just listens to the show and doesn't really have any inclinations, shut up. Don't get on the internet running your mouth.
Yeah.
Don't get on the internet acting like you're an expert or something. Because the minute you do, they start watching. And if you hit too close to home, then you're going to have a real problem.
Yep.
So take what you learn and just shut up.
Well, with that, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I've got some homework to do.
Me too.
So yeah, I think a lot of us that I've been mentally taking some notes and storing some things aside for some future talk.
Hey, is that Roxanne there?
Yeah, she's back there. She's just kind of sitting back there, just chillaxing.
I'm trying to take it all in and just think and.
There's a lot to take in.
I'm glad to hear you. Hey, y'all, listen. There's nothing to be afraid of. They're just dudes
and gals. Well, we honestly we don't know at this point.
No, they could be aliens.
If
I live a little longer, I might say alien.
or if we've got something a little more adult style, some other adult style beverage, we might start believing aliens. But we got to make sure we call them by the right pronoun because we don't want to get arrested.
No.
But
and that's a whole different area of expertise.
Right. Neither one of us, I think, has the right doctorate to be able to decide whether someone is a he, a she, a z, or an it.
No.
But
I don't want to know.
I don't either. And some of these people, you can't tell. They got some pretty good makeup artists. They need to go to Hollywood.
Yeah.
But, even...
Yeah, I'm glad they didn't have that around when I was dating.
You'd be in trouble.
Yeah. Because, I had low standards.
Well, it's a good thing. It's a good thing you found Tina because she's definitely 3 notches above you.
Oh, more than 3.
Or I'm trying to help you out, Slick.
I credit Tina with me being alive, so that tells you where I'm at with her.
That's exactly what I have to say about my wife. But in the same breath, I tell my wife she has to die before me so she can get me into heaven. She laughs at it all the time, but it's the gosh to honest truth.
We're
I
serious.
got my work cut out.
Yeah, we're serious. you and Tina have to go before us just because somebody has got to put in a good word.
Exactly. And trust me, I need a long list of good words. I'm going to send her with a note card on some notes that I need. Okay, you remember that one time? Okay, here's what he meant. But anyway, again, I want to reiterate the fact that, this is, even though this is a special presentation on the idea, the history and the future and the now of Antifa, what they are, who they are, what they represent, kind of what some of their tactics are. I don't want you to live in fear. I want you to go about your normal life, but I want you to be educated on this stuff. And Slick would say the same thing. But this has opened a good dialogue that I think we can revisit in the future on, learning some more tactics so we can. And it's always good to learn. It is. It's always good to learn new skills when you turn the news on, or you're listening to talk radio, or even a show like this, that you're able to immediately at that moment dissect what's happening and judge for yourself and be able to pick the pieces that are true. We pride ourselves on trying to be as honest and open and truthful in everything that we bring you. Yeah, there's a lot of opinion that comes into play, but 75% of what we do here is try and give you the facts. The other 25% is entertainment and opinion. So, be vigilant.
And the thing that I would. The reason I love your show so much, and I come and I try to put the shout out every chance I get, and all of that, is because of the history. Because people who ignore history are doomed to repeat history, and we have, as a culture, as a society, we have ignored history to the point where our government is actively suppressing history, and now we are repeating it.
Yep.
So, you want to know what comes next? Look at the Bolshevik Revolution.
Yeah. We didn't, Slick, we didn't even talk about the stuff that happened in the Arab Spring and stuff that. So, that may have to be for a whole nother show. So I think we've...
Yeah, because that one's going to have to be heavy CIA intelligence operations and stuff like that, because that's what happened in the Arab Spring.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry if it feels like I'm laughing at you, but I'm not, because the cat apparently woke up and just walked into the studio here and meowed at Roxanne, and she about crapped herself. Not the cat, but Roxanne did. So she's like, "Holy no, God!" Slick, I want to say thank you again for taking some time out of your day and your night. And again, thanks to Tina for letting you come on. I know she doesn't have a problem with this at all. So let's put our heads together again and try and figure out another time to where we can talk about this stuff. Let's keep the momentum on this to where we can continue to keep building and educating off of this. And I say it all the time, but I hope you, and I'm talking to you one-on-one, brother to brother, I really hope you understand you are family. I mean, you're family to us. Yeah. You're family to everybody else that listens and watches to the show. We pray for you and Tina. We pray for your extended family. I know many times you've asked us to, and we've always done that. But I just want you to know how much you mean to us and you mean to the show. You really are awesome. We do appreciate all your support.
Feeling mutual, brother. Anytime, anywhere.
So, know this: when you got to retreat out of Texas, which would never happen, you got a home here in Kansas, and I know we got a home down in Texas.
Yeah,
we've actually got what? How many places do we have in Texas that we can retreat?
3?
There's one. Well, there's 4, 5. I got 5 places I can go in Texas. So 6 if I really had to stretch it. So Texas is like a second home. So with that, I know that you're taking a bit of a break on social media, but how can people find you?
On social media, I'm at Flickery Trigger on Twitter, and I'm at Rebel Road Tactical or actually it's Rebel Road Tac on Facebook, and I'm at I think I changed it.
I can't remember if you changed where you're at on Instagram or what, but I think it's the same as it is on the Facebooks.
Well, Instagram and Facebook is the same.
Okay.
I'm at Rebel Road. I'm at I'm at Flickery Trigger on YouTube, and I also have another YouTube channel that's Rebel Road Tactical.
And what can we expect if we go over to the YouTube? I know you've talked about some stuff that you're hoping to come out with. What do you got lined up for the coming year?
Well, for the coming year, I've been asked to do some training stuff. So I'm gonna do 3-level training, level 1, level 2, level 3 on YouTube based, and then we're gonna write a book about it and develop a course from it. That's for next year. And then we're also going to do, just general screwing off redneck stuff, like we do here in Texas.
That could be bad.
We might go to some mud. We might go to some tractor pulls, or, I know some guys with trucks, and we might drink a little moonshine. That sort of thing. Have a good time.
That sounds like good old American fun right there.
Oh yeah, heck yeah! Get a little muddy, drink a little shine, go home, go to bed.
That's right. Get up and do it all over again the next day.
That's right.
Okay. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. So hang in there. I am going to. I want you to stay on the line, but I'm going to mute you for a second, and while I wrap the show up, I want to chat with you for a couple minutes afterwards, if that's okay.
Okay, buddy.
All right, hang on just a second. All right, guys, let's a big thank you to our guest tonight, Slickery Trigger, on Twitter. Show him some love. Show his family some love. The guy is just a straight-up, good, down-to-earth American. He's like a brother to us. We love him, and we love his family. So, without further ado, that is all the time we have for this special broadcast on Antifa. A little bit of everything with regards to it. God willing, we'll be right back on whatever the next time is, whether it's probably going to be Wednesday night, the normal time, 9 p.m. Central, 10 p.m. Eastern. You can follow us on Twitter at Stafford Voice. You can look us up on Facebook. All you got to do is just search for the Stafford Voice. There we are. Boom. It's that easy. Email any of your questions, comments, or concerns to thestaffordvoice@gmail.com. I want to thank you so much for your time, and until next week, thanks and God bless.